Well, hello, everybody. It's Wednesday, July 10th in the year of 2024. It's 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. It's some unbelievably late time overseas, but that means it's time for Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here in just delightfully hot and humid South Jersey. I'm in air conditioning, but I just feel like sweating just because. But joining me always out on the West Coast, the left coast, the other coast, the president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, and my good friend, Mr. David Bash.
Hey, Mark.
David, how the heck are you tonight?
Well, I am sweating, even though I'm in air conditioning, because I just got finished exercising at my cardiac rehab center.
There you go.
Nothing happened to my heart recently. It's. I've actually wanted to go back there for a while, but first because of COVID, they had to limit their number of people they let in, and then there was just a lot more demand. It seemed, and they had to give preference to people who had recent heart attacks. So I was on a waiting list for about 5 months, and they finally called me and said, "Okay, you can come in." So now I'm there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 o'clock every day. So this was my third visit, and yeah, I mean the AC wasn't working as well in there as it had been. So
Yeah.
I worked up a pretty good sweat on the first on the treadmill, then on the arm bike, and then on the foot pedal bike. And yeah, I mean it's good for me. I need to do this because I'm not exercising beyond that. I'm
Do
just
you feel winded at all? Do you feel chest pains at all? Do you feel
no,
any kind
not
of
at all.
anxiety about doing it? Because
No, no,
sometimes, yeah,
no. I mean, only the usual anxiety of having to do something that's beyond my control. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but no, I have a good I have a good time there. I put in the earbuds and listen to some cool stuff. Today I listened to New Colony 6 Colonization, and that one I
Nice,
really liked. That got me
nice.
through pretty well. Anyway, so there is that. Last night I had the honor of emceeing the ninth annual Harry Nilsson sing along,
Nice.
where different artists from in and around LA did one of Harry's songs each. So we actually had 28. We had 28 performers.
Wow.
Everybody did one song, and all. I mean, people seem to like what I added to the table as an MC, but on the other hand, well, let me put it to you this way: I just did 3 IPOs in Liverpool, Copenhagen, and Stockholm. I
Yeah.
introduced and gave it up for 160 different bands. I made no mistakes at all. Last night, I probably made at least 7. Um, Number one, I got the song order mixed up, and I introduced an act that wasn't going to be on until another song later. Uh,
Oh,
I mispronounced a I'm not mispronounced. I missaid a person's first name.
all right.
Um, let's see. I got a song wrong in one place. What else did I do? Well, the worst one was I called a woman who has a fairly androgynous. Well, I think it's more of a male than female name, but I introduced because I didn't. The acts come from behind me, so I don't necessarily see them when I introduce them.
Right.
And I introduced this person as Mister, and it turned out to be a woman.
Oh.
And so at the at the end of her set, I apologized to her, and
Oh,
she didn't mind at
ouch.
all. No, she didn't mind at all. In fact, she said, "You know what? It's okay because I'm non-binary."
Mhm.
So it's like, but she clearly was a woman. I mean, it's Pat situation there.
Uh-huh.
But she took it. She took it.
It's Pat. Oh, it's fun.
She took it well. And but beyond that, I gave some really good trivia about Harry Nilsson and some of the songs that they were performing. And people said I moved things along well. I think I was pretty
Nice.
entertaining.
That's nice.
But
That's
I
cool.
think I over apologize. I hold myself up to a really big standard
You're right.
when I introduce, and I wasn't meeting the standard.
Hey, John, congratulations on your daughter's nuptials, huh?
How in the world is that word pronounced nuptials? Why isn't it nuptials?
I don't know. Why is it Brooke Shields? I don't know.
Because her mommy said so. She controlled everything about her life.
Hey,
Anyway,
you got a nice Cavern t-shirt on there, and I'm wearing the International Pop Overthrow Liverpool.
Yep, we're
t-shirt.
all about the Cavern today.
That's all right. We didn't even plan it.
New watch check here.
Uh-oh.
As you know, I have a lot of the Boulevard Accutron family. Well,
oh yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I've got this is the one of the ones I didn't have, the Boulevard Accutron 2 from about 10 years ago. It's got the sweep movement, as you can see, and I just love the simplicity of the black and white on the metal black man. The only problem is, and only I would care about this, if you look at the date, it's not centered perfectly. It's a little bit off.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you noticed that, huh?
I can see it kind of. It's
not too bad, but it's one of those things like just bugs me a little bit. But I'll take it. You know,
it's very cool.
It's a pretty cool watch. But next week, I'm going to have a watch that's the mother of all watches. It's coming.
The mother of all watches.
It's pretty amazing. It's not old or anything, but it is discontinued. And there's
wow, okay.
Like it. So we'll talk about that. But anyway, you said you have something.
Well, I got two things. You know, as far as the cool scale is concerned, I've been trying to get this guy on the show, and it really is just a timing issue. And of course, he's very busy, but just got the book in from.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I've been working on him for a long time. But Michael Palin has a brand new book. I love to read all his books, and he's my favorite Python.
Yes,
he's got a new book out called Great Uncle Harry, and he sent me the book, and he wrote in the inscription. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, "For Mark Hershberger, Material Issues Podcast. All best wishes, Terry, Michael Palin."
Terry Jones.
Michael Palin. But like, how cool is that?
That's incredibly cool. Congratulations.
Isn't that cool?
You think we'll get him?
He's so busy, and it's tough for him to like commit to a date because he's got so much going on. But he's always told me that if he can, and he said sometime maybe it'd be last moment type thing. I'm like, any moment would be great. So we'll see.
It's a deceased parrot. I hope that happens. He's my favorite Python also. So
it's an ex-parrot.
I love that. So
hey, I do have a video clip I wanted to play quickly. What was the date that Jeremy played the Cavern when he destroyed the stage? I got the little clip of it right here, and figured some people would like to see this. That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
I'm going to look it up while you're playing it.
All right, here we go. This is the Jeremy Band at the front stage of the Cavern. It features his daughter, his son, the late great Todd Borsch, and of course Dave Dietrich on drums. But this is what Jeremy did on this infamous moment, and I caught it on video, and here it is. Everybody, enjoy.
I don't think you didn't show the aftermath when he knocked down all the ends.
Yeah, I wanted to keep this clip a little short. I could have kept it going where he was smashing everything else up, but I figured 45 seconds of Jeremy having a great time at the Cavern front stage. Well, which was really
here's the thing. Back then we were using both the front and back stages, and so I had to take turns manning different stages. I happened to be in the backstage seeing a local band called Reese, and when they were done, I came in and I noticed that I didn't think Jeremy was done yet. I noticed that he's done, and I see the amps like all toppled over and guitars on the stage, and like, what the hell happened? And like one of the Cavern staff said he knocked all the amps down. This is terrible. How could you know. And I said, look, I'm very sorry that happened, but if there's one person, yeah, well, he said he got caught in the moment, and it wasn't pre-planned. He just went with, and not just him, but everyone else in the band, April, Mark, and Todd and Dave, they all kind of went with it. But I said, if anyone would pay for it, for any damages, it would be Jeremy. So don't worry. Believe me, I said to the guy, if there's any damage to anything, I promise you he'll pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he didn't, I would have had to. But as it turned out, nothing got damaged. That's Jeremy for you. Sometimes he just gets caught. He lets the moment take him.
Yeah, he sure does. I was standing there right at the corner of the stage with the video camera, and I was glad
I'm so sorry I missed it. Thankfully, I have seen the video, but he's done other things like in the back room. There's a water pipe, not a water pipe for smoking, but a big pipe with water that's suspended from the ceiling, and he actually jumped up and grabbed it and started, just kind of gyrating from up there. And I thought, oh, fuck, it's going to come down and the place is going to flood. But thankfully that didn't happen. It was able to hold his weight. But geez, that was scary. That really was scary.
You gotta love Jeremy. Yeah,
we gotta love Jeremy. Well, yeah, we also have to love our guest, who we've kept waiting.
Here we go.
On here with our babbling, but anyway, he's been on before. He was on with his co-editor, Paul Myers, not long after I think they had done the Go All the Way book on Power Pop. Since then, he's written many other books, and here's one of the latest ones, Generation Blue, an oral history of the Hollywood geek rock scene in the 1990s and 2000s. Now, the geek rock scene basically was spearheaded by Weezer and bands of that ilk. Our author here was in one of those bands, drummer for Tsar, a big industry darling at the time. So and the geek rock scene had a tangential relationship to the power pop scene. So when the LA scene was really thriving, you had those bands and the power pop bands playing together in festivals like Poptopia and then IPO. So this is one of his latest books, and it's basically an accounting of the scene by many of the musicians who are part of it. And I actually wrote a little part about IPO and how it related to the geek rock scene as well. He's got a more recent book. This is part of a series he does called Remember the Lightning. This one's a guitar pop journal in which he talks about some bands that also are sort of tangential to power pop, like the Apples in Stereo, for example. But he's written lots of books on and around power pop. He's also written books on crime. And once we bring him on, I'm going to talk about another writer who specializes in a different field in crime, who also written books on crime. Very interesting stuff. So without further ado, would you please give a huge welcome to S.W. Lauden?
Hello.
There he is.
Hi.
Hello, S.W.
Hi.
S.W.
Please call me Steve or S-Dubs. Those are your choices.
S-Dub? I'm not cool enough to say that.
Neither am I, actually. I always flinch when I make that joke. I was watching the Jeremy video, I think probably like a lot of your viewers and listeners. And just my eyes were on the Rickenbacker the whole time. I was like, you can just do anything you want on the stage, but God, please protect the Rickenbacker.
Don't hurt the Rickenbacker.
It's interesting you use the word God, because Jeremy is actually a man of God. He's a pastor. Every Sunday he does lectures on the Bible.
Yeah.
So God definitely protected him and the cavern
and the Rickenbacker.
And the Rickenbacker, because they just slammed those amps to the ground. But those amps, as you may or may not know, those are real workhorses, so they could handle it. It was I missed the moment. As I said, I was in the other stage, but wow.
Well, I don't know anything about how Jeremy is when he's preaching or giving a sermon, but I'd like to think that sometimes he destroys that stage as well.
That would be awesome.
He really doesn't. He's a very, very calm, placid, peaceful guy, loved by many, many people,
including John.
Calm the F down. Yeah, he does. Jeremy doesn't curse, unless he did tell me once that he will curse if it's as a compliment. Like I'll do my best Jeremy impression, which is awful anyway. But he'll say, "I don't mind saying that album was fucking great." That he'll do, but he'll never say "fuck you" to somebody out of anger, for example.
Good stuff. But yeah, anyway. he's a classic. Yeah, it's nice to have you here, Steve. Or S Dubs.
Actually, he's coming to IPOLA this year, so
cool.
Well, maybe he'll knock down some amps, so maybe you can come to that show.
I might come and just knock down his amps.
Yeah, you should.
I've been known to do that kind of thing too. And then like on the T-shirt front, like I'm wearing a shirt that's for a small town with a population of 18 in Central California.
I know that town. It's right. Yeah. It's right near. Oh, damn! We go up there. My wife and I go up there all the time. Cambria. It's right near Cambria. We've driven through it.
I think tangentially connected to the Cavern and IPO T-shirts. Like Harmony is a big deal with all the music.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah. Population 18.
Also a great band name
from the road.
Population 18.
So obviously, most people in LA have known you as a drummer for Tsar, Rydell High, the Brother Steve, and other bands. But you're also an author. These days, how do you see yourself more as an author or as a musician?
I think that I see myself more as a writer, for sure. Yeah, I don't actively pursue drumming projects very much. I mean, when we put the Geek Rock book and the compilation that went with it out on Big Stir Records, I did put together a show, and Rydell High did our first official reunion show in 15, 20 years. It was fun.
I think I was out of town for it, but it went well.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. First of all, I was so blown away by all the people who gave me their time and shared their stories about that era. But then when the book kind of evolved into also being a compilation, a vinyl compilation, I didn't know whether or not I would get a favorable response from the bands. And right away I had 11 tracks, and they're amazing. So that was fantastic. But then to go to those bands and say, hey, I know none of you guys are really active, or most of you guys aren't active. Would you put this show together? I mean, Shuffle Puck played their first show in 27 years. Yeah. Linus and Perry from Nerf Herder did an acoustic set. Jose and Daniel from Ozma did an acoustic set. My old band Rydell High got back together. Christian from the Campfire Girls performed. And Soma played, which, Soma obviously played a bunch of IPOs back in the day. I'm sorry. Yeah. International Pop Overthrows back in the day.
Are you talking about Ozma or
Soma? Justin Fisher's band.
Oh, okay.
OMA. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So did you rehearse a lot for the show, or?
I think Rydell High rehearsed 4 times. At first, mainly because it'd been literally 18 to 24 months since I played drums, so I had to kind of relearn to play drums a little bit, just to get my confidence back up. Those songs are pretty fast when we do them live. Albums like. But no, it was fun getting back in the room with Kevin Rydell, and unfortunately, we were a trio back in the day, but unfortunately, our original guitarist, Steve Leroy, passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it was Kevin and I, and then we brought in a bunch of ringers. We got Matt Fuller, who's been in a bunch of bands, and we got Marco DeSantis, who's also been in a bunch of bands. Yeah. And then Jose from Ozma played guitar. So we had 5 people on stage to do the songs of a former trio.
Wow. And so, I haven't talked to too many. I mean, we've had lots of reunion shows at IPO, but I haven't really talked in depth about it to most of the bands. Does the muscle memory come back really quickly?
I'm speaking only for myself. In the past, it has, but because the gaps are longer and longer between when I play drums, and I'm not a guy who ever practices. The only time I ever play drums is if I'm in a room with other musicians. This time the muscle memory took a beat, to be quite honest, which kind of freaked me out a little bit because it's something I've been taking for granted since I was 12 or 13 years old. But it didn't make me want to play drums anymore. It was fun to do that show. And then I was like, all right, that was great. Talk to you guys later. I'm going to go write another book.
It's probably more along the lines of what David always complains about. It's just the stamina, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Who have you been talking to?
I was talking to S-Dubs here,
No.
But that was my point, though.
S-Dubs is a very tender lover, and I last really long.
But my point really was it is probably more a thing about just stamina. You might be able to hit the tempo and do things in the first two songs, but it probably wears on you after more than that. It's like, whoa, I haven't done this in a while, And
we were running the songs together to try to put on a show, and then the tempos picked up from the way we recorded it. And in that band, I was much more in the Keith Moon vein. I was doing a lot of roles. And so there's a lot of the like, will he land on the one? A lot of those moments.
Now, when you were younger, did you aspire to be a writer, or were you just thinking about music, or did you aspire to something else completely and then change?
I mean, my juggling career didn't do what I wanted it to. No, I'm just kidding.
Ed Sullivan went off the air, so you really had no venue,
Yeah. No,
it's all right. It's all right.
Okay. In your teens, 15 or 16, when like everything's electric in your brain and you're just hoovering all this information up, writing and music were just neck and neck for me. I loved reading, and I loved playing music, and I was already in a band at that time that was taking itself pretty seriously. But I knew enough when I was younger that playing music was a young man's game, and that I could probably publish books when I was older. So I got my journalism degree. I worked as a newspaper editor. I did all that. But then when I signed record deals, that just kind of became the focus. And it wasn't until 2014, 2015, after I had been out of the music business for a little while, that I finally got back to writing. And I've just been, the pace has been a little hectic, but I've just been publishing book after book.
So you've got a journalism degree. So that was a question that I had. What led you to down that road? But you've obviously had a passion for it and went to school for that. So it was a matter of when music stopped and you started, getting serious about the writing side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, the band I was in high school. We had an hour between when school ended and when we would go practice at my friend Keith's house down by the beach. And so I would spend that hour, I would drive from school straight to this bookstore in Hermosa Beach called Either Or Bookstore. It's like an old boho, city light style bookstore in Hermosa Beach that was like a leftover from when Hermosa was more bohemian, the Lighthouse and Insomniac and all that. Cat in the window, old hippies behind the counter, the bookstore I'm talking about. Yeah. And I would just stand there in the aisles and read Bukowski and John Fonte and Umberto Eco and whatever. And then I would go to practice and play Split End songs or, Wild Thing or whatever. So, I mean, and then in journalism, when I got my degree, I was the arts editor for the school paper. I was reviewing albums every week. I got pretty close to getting a job at Billboard magazine out of college, but it kind of ended up not happening, and I ended up moving to Europe. But when I lived in Europe, I was writing for a Czech teeny bopper magazine.
Whoa!
It's like interviewing bands, and so they've always kind of been hand in hand for me, which is why it's no surprise that all of my nonfiction and probably about 95% of my crime fiction all revolve around music.
Mm-hmm.
Did you move to Europe because you wanted to live in Czechoslovakia, or did it just sort of organically happen?
No, when I was playing, my high school band ended up moving to Santa Barbara, and I lived up there and went to City College up there and lived in IV, and we just played keg parties in a couple clubs downtown. But we fell in with all these journalists who wrote for the UCSB paper, the Daily Nexus, and so there was a huge crossover. That's actually where I first met Jeff Whalen, was way back then. And there was this huge crossover. And then I ended up going and getting my journalism degree from Cal State Northridge. but a bunch of the Nexus people started the first English language newspaper in Prague. And it was called, that's right, Prognosis. And
damn, I was going to say that.
yeah, I know. There was actually
2 more seconds. Yeah.
no one's ever gotten it, so I bring the time down. But Matt Welch, one of the guys that I knew when I was in that band, who was from the Nexus, invited me over and offered to let me stay in his apartment, and I could write for the paper. And I wrote for the paper very little because they weren't willing to pay me, and so I ended up managing bars and nightclubs instead, which is like this whole other chapter of my life that is so out of control that I'm still trying to sort through it 30 years later.
Now,
well, I was going to write for a few Czech publications, but I never really got around to it. One I was looking at was the Prognosticator.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Just never.
So
I
that's
just never
not
got
a joke. Okay.
No.
It was
Yeah.
a joke.
No. Actually, I mean, so how is the English? How did you learn Czechoslovakian, or does everyone speak English there?
They spoke a lot of English there, and I was lazy and drunk, and so there wasn't a lot of.
Which sounded like Czech, so.
Yeah. But no, at the time there were enough people that spoke Czech. You know, I personally learned enough to get by. It's a regret I have that I didn't totally learn the language, but I have friends who ended up marrying and staying there and raising families, and they're completely fluent. Czech's basically their first language now, even though they were born in the U.S. And so I've seen it in practice. But no, honestly, I was there to play rock music, and I was in a band called Dope, that was a grunge band. I mean, I had hair down to here at that time, and
got a picture?
I don't have one. I'll send you a picture, David. I don't know.
I gotta see it.
It might help with the stamina. But then I played in a band called Matt Welch and the Froggy Pete, and that's my buddy Matt, and that was sort of a grunge band as well. We were best known for doing a cover of Purple Rain. That was our big
grunge, Purple Rain. Yeah.
My band Dope used to do Leonard Cohen songs, but we'd do them as grunge songs.
Perfect.
Trying to think of Come On, Marianne or Suzanne as grunge. Okay.
We did Suzanne as grunge, and it was on our demo tape. In fact, I'm looking to dig one up that's not warped so that I can digitize it and post it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So how many years were you in Czechoslovakia?
I was there a year and a half, basically. I think I used a Eurail pass for 30 days. My buddy and Ted and I kind of Eurailed around Europe, and then we landed in Prague, and Ted went home, and then I found out that the paper wasn't going to be able to pay me. I thought I had a job, and I think I had $120 in my pocket.
Nice.
I mean, that goes a long way in Prague at the time. It was really affordable at that time. So I would just go to this Canadian-owned Mexican restaurant that was by the bridge down by the river, and asked for a job like 3 or 4 days a week. And finally, the guy got so annoyed with me that he damn it! And he wrote down this address, and he's like, "Take this to this other place across the river and tell them to give you a job," because I was bothering this guy so much. And so he got me a job pouring beer 12 hours a night at this backpacker bar that was just opening called the Thirsty Dog. And it became this really famous backpacker bar.
Really?
Nick Cave wrote a song about it. Every band that came through town would hang there. And then we slowly opened up other restaurants and nightclubs and pool halls and martini bars in this beautiful building, including a club that I managed for a while called the Repray Club. And Urge Overkill played there. Joe Strummer played there.
Wow.
Festival, and Robin Hitchcock played. It was totally a legit thing. So it was like kind of just living the life.
So what brought you back here? I mean, it sounds like you should have stayed.
My health.
Oh, really?
I couldn't keep eating dried food and drinking beer instead of water, so I came back to America to kind of get my life together. I was not making good choices.
And so what time frame are we in right now?
So I got back to America in 93, 94, or 94, because when I got back, my good friend Mike Randall from the band Baby Lemonade was working. He and Rusty were working at Moby Disc in Santa Monica.
Yes, that's where I met them. Yeah,
me too. Well, I used to hang around with Mike in Santa Barbara a lot. We used to get in trouble together, and I went in there and I walked in and he saw me and he said, "Oh my God, Steve, there's this new band you have to hear. You're the first person I thought of when I heard it." And he played Undone, the Sweater Song. So it was right around the time that Weezer's first album was getting ready to come out.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We know what happened then.
Yes.
So here we go. So how long after that does Tsar form?
Well, I mean,
Right.
how I get into the Weezer scene is Marco from my friend Keith's band Pop Sicko. Marco was the bass player. Marco later ended up in a lot of other bands, including
Sure.
He called me one day and said that a band I had seen open for Pop Sicko at the Gaslight was looking for a drummer. And I was living in the South Bay. I was playing in a hardcore punk band called the Fish Sticks. It was the Black Flag logo, but it was Fish Sticks.
Nice.
And I was playing in an instrumental surf punk band called Bookmobile, and I was the arts editor at the free weekly newspaper in my hometown. Like, I was just living a beach rat life. And so the idea of driving to Hollywood 4 nights a week and trying to get a record deal, which had never really mattered to me, was not appealing. But Marco convinced me. That band ended up being Rydell High. And so I joined Rydell High, and we played 4 million shows in Los Angeles between the time that we formed, and we made a record for My Records in Santa Barbara, which is a small indie label that was started by Joey Cape from Lagwagon. And Joey produced our record with Ryan Green. Nerf Herder was the band that was right before us on My Records. Nerf Herder jumped to Arista. We jumped to A&M. We shot a video with Jerry Casale from Devo. He got played on 120 minutes, like twice. And then the day our record came out on A&M, everybody at the label got pink slipped. So got dropped immediately. And around that time, Jeff Whalen and Dan Kern. Now, Dan Kern was in that high school band with me going all the way back.
Okay.
Those guys had started a band with another friend of mine, Jeff Solomon. And I think at the time they were called Stupid Girl. I think that's what the original name was, but very briefly. They needed a drummer so that they could play a show live on KXLU. So they asked me to come over and rehearse with them twice, and then we played this live show on KXLU. And then they asked me to join. Rydell High was on the rock, so I did join. We changed our name to Tsar, and that was about late 97, early 98.
Yeah.
What would you consider Rydell High genre-wise? Because I before I even heard a note of Rydell High, you hear that name, it's such a great kind of boy band pop name. You know, I mean, seriously, you know, if I look at
where the name is derived from.
Well, from Greece, right?
Okay, you do, yeah.
Yeah, but I look at my daughters. My daughters are 29 and 25. So in the last 15 years, they were very much into these boy bands, you know, Hollywood Ending, who Linus of Hollywood worked with, 5 Seconds of Summer, things like that. So you hear the name Rydell High, you're like, oh my God, it's a perfect name. This has got to be a, you know, a boy band type of thing. Was that the thought process of that name? Was that the genesis of what you wanted to do? Or because after hearing what Rydell High did, it's very different. You know?
Yeah, no, I never heard anybody say that name brings to mind boy bands. We were named by Rivers from Weezer because Kevin Rydell grew up with Rivers and used to was the singer in his heavy metal band in Connecticut, the band that moved out here in '89 to catch the end of the Sunset Strip scene. They were called Avant Garde. And Kevin was the lead singer. Rivers was the lead guitarist. Justin Fisher from Soma and Shufflepuck and later Nerf Herder was the bassist. They all moved out here with this metal band. And then they kind of all split off into all these different bands. The family tree gets pretty complicated pretty fast, which is what I'm talking about in the Geek Rock book, is a lot of that, them moving out. But they all stayed really tight. And when Kevin was starting this new band with Steve Leroy, I think Rivers kind of offhandedly said you should name it Rydell High, but use your spelling, which is different spelling.
Right.
I mean, there really weren't any boy bands at that point. So
no, there really were. And that's probably the experience of me going through what my daughters went through. So then I look back retroactively and say, oh, Rydell High, what a great name. I mean, you could have been called Kaniki, You know, and that would have been.
There's a band called Kaniki. Yeah,
that's a great name too. I mean, that's a great name too. It really is.
And there's a band called Zuko that played IPO Liverpool a few times.
But
in that case, there actually is a guy named Zuko in the band, so it wasn't after Danny.
Jordan Oakes is saying that the name Rydell High evokes Rye at a deli. So that's the first time I've heard that too.
Jordan is full of puns. There's nobody better than him.
But it was just guitar pop, alternative guitar pop. That's the sound we were going for, and it was very much, especially in retrospect. At the time, you could split hairs about what is and isn't this, or what sounds like this and what doesn't. But in retrospect, it's very much in the Weezer vein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
I love
it.
What do you think of Weezer's career since then? I mean, they've done some of their albums don't do anything for me, and some, especially the ones from the last decade, really do a lot for me because they kind of went to sort of a more sprightly pop kind of thing. What do you think of what they've done?
I'm blown away by it. I mean, just because I was in close enough proximity early enough on to never have suspected that they would still be hit makers in 2024. You know, so it's I'm just blown away by what those guys have accomplished, and sometimes the records do it for me, the songs do it for me, sometimes they don't. I mean, there is, in talking to a lot of people about that era. People who were close to it and fans, because originally when I envisioned the book, it was just going to be about geek rock all up. So I did 30 something interviews for what went into the book, but I did about 8 extra interviews when I just was going to be talking about geek rock. So I got some outside perspective. And there is this dividing line. There is the Blue Album in Pinkerton. And then there's that 5 years they take off when Rivers goes to Harvard. I think it was Harvard. And then there's the Green Album when they come back. And that's the start of their new career path, right? I mean, the Green Album relates to the previous 2 albums, but the Blue Album and the Pinkerton, I think sonically and songwriting wise and sort of their position as a band, stand alone on an island from the rest of their catalog.
They do. Although I have to say, of all the Color albums, the White Album is my favorite.
The Beatles?
No, the White Album by Weezer. Didn't they?
I was just playing with you, man. Come on.
Scared
my favorite's Chinese Democracy.
Well, it's speaking of just career turnarounds in different directions. Let's talk. I'd really like to talk about your writing a little bit more. You're talking about the book, the geek. What's the full title? What's the
Generation Blue?
Thank you, Generation Blue, Hollywood geek rock scene, which has interviews with a lot of people that you were in and around in the geek rock. But I've got a copy of this in my hands. That'll be the day. Plus a bunch of other. And this, of course, is music based. There's there's music involved throughout here. Where do you get your inspiration for something like this? And what is your writing process? Do you already have we talked a couple of guests of ours who already have a beginning, middle, and end in their head, and then they just start writing around it. Something like this. Where do you get it from? What's your process?
Well, I mean, but what you're tapping into is a thing that's like a sort of known thing in writing circles. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser? Right? Mm-hmm. Do you write a plot or do you fly by the seat of your pants?
Right.
And most authors, if they're being honest, are a combination of both. The first crime fiction I published was a 3-book series about a punk rock PI named Greg Salem. That's set basically in Hermosa Beach, where I grew up. So imagine like a Henry Rollins type figure as a private investigator set in Hermosa Beach. And he plays in a punk band. And that book was called Bad Citizen Corporation. And I basically plotted it out, but it's autobiographical enough that I could also kind of fly by the seat of my pants once I got into the characters and into the scenes. So that was that 3 books. And then my publisher at Rare Bird was like, what do you want to do next after he published those books? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, have you considered, you've got this great music background. Would you consider doing nonfiction about music? Because those books do really well. There's an audience for them. And
sure.
I said, yeah. And he said, what would you want to write about? And I said, probably power pop. And he said, well, I'm working on a book with Paul Myers. Would you partner with him? And so that's how this happened.
Right.
But I have this crime writer brain. So I'm in editing this book, writing the essay that I did, editing the essays, rounding up the contributors with Paul for this book. And in the background, my brain's going, oh my God, wouldn't it be cool to make a story about a failed power pop band that goes around and steals Beatles memorabilia? And that was the inspiration. It happened when I was putting Go All the Way together. And so I plotted it out loosely. And then once I got in, because I'm talking about bands hanging out in vans and empty clubs and fighting about the Beatles, like it's all stuff I kind of just know. And so then I could just fly by the seat of my pants a little bit. And what I am noticing, there are 2 books in that series. There's That'll Be the Day, which is the first power pop heist. Then there's Good Girls Don't, a second power pop heist. And then I started a 3rd book in like 2020, 2021, and I never finished it. Hey, there you go. Nice. And a big shout out to Eric Beatner, who's a really fantastic crime writer. He does all the design work for these book covers. And
awesome design, yeah.
The flowers, guitar picks. The stem is a guitar lead. The center is a bullet. Obviously, there's guns in the 45 insert. Yeah, there's just a lot of detail work in there. So
it's wonderful, yeah. It's really well done.
Covers. So I started the 3rd book and put it aside and then just kind of forgot about it. I just kind of stopped writing crime fiction for a little while, but I actually just finished it. It is tentatively called Happiness is a Warm Gun. And it is being read by a couple of beta readers right now, and I'll probably publish it in September.
Oh, cool. So wait, were you a big fan of crime shows when you were a kid, or were you more of a budding criminal?
Oh, thank you, Carl. I love your new book.
There you go.
His new book's amazing.
There you go. Well, Carl's going to be on the show in August talking about his new book. So
it's so good. Have you read it yet? Have you read it?
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of the blog where a lot of that energy is coming from. But man, it's such a fun read. At music fans and geeks
John, I gotta tell you, John, that one was beneath you. You can do better.
Carl's new book is really good, so he'll be talking about that in August and promoting the heck out of it. But very cool.
So anyway, back to my question: Were you one of those kids who got into some harmless trouble as a kid, and you kind of liked crime on that level, or were you the kind who watched a lot of crime shows and read a lot of crime books and decided I want to write about this?
I think it was reading crime fiction that really turned me on to it. I mean, I got into my fair share of trouble. I wasn't a passive bystander in a lot of stuff. I mean, I was a obnoxious punk rock kid. So, I was around for a lot of stuff. If I wasn't involved, I was nearby, which is what I'm writing about in the punk rock PI series. With the power pop heist, they're shorter. They're meant to be a little lighter. And really the heist, I had to find some way to drive the story. My real conception for it, which actually is threaded throughout, is just these 2 music-obsessed brothers arguing with each other about music in the tour van. That's really what I want to write about. And that's really the upshot of the series, is them just fighting over the Kinks or Oasis or whatever.
How disciplined are you, Steve, when you write? Do you we've had people on the show that say they get up at a certain time, they do X amount of hours of writing, they take a break, they come back, they sit down. I mean, when we talk to Gilbert Asala just with music, he gets up every day bright and early and he sits at the piano and he works at it. I mean, do you work at writing that way, or do you just, does it come when it comes and you do it when you do it? And
yeah, I think with when I was more pointedly pursuing a crime fiction publishing path, I would get up. My kids were younger. I would get up at 5:30. I would write for 2 hours before work, make sure my kids got off to school, go to work, and then I would write at night again. I was just like, because I didn't have the muscle memory yet. I didn't have enough experience, so I had to force myself to do it, because it's pretty cool. If you manage to, for me anyway, early on, you manage to write 1,000 words and then you go back and read it. And then you have to erase 950 of them because they're terrible. It's a net gain of 50 words. That's a tough way to get to 65,000 words until you've done it a little bit, in my personal experience. But now, because I'm writing so often because of Remember the Lightning, my Substack newsletter, and because I've published enough books, I can write pretty fast and I can drop down into a chair with a computer and I can knock out a chapter, or the bare bones of a chapter, or a blurry approximation of what a chapter might be. As I've gone along, I do outline more. And when I outline, I will write a paragraph chapter description. So before I sit down to write the book, I've got the outline, and then I got a paragraph about everything that happens to every character there in the outline. That's the hardest part. If I can get that done, I can write the book, no problem. Now, the other funny thing, because of my own relationship with my own mind, I get about 7 chapters in, and then I change everything. And then there's the butterfly effect, where you have to go backwards and forwards and go like, well, if he's got red hair in chapter 11, he has to have red hair in chapter 1. And so then it becomes this game you play with yourself. But the discipline is, to answer your question, the discipline is not really a problem for me at this point, just because I write so much.
But you have to have a lot of patience to write a book, especially going through and revising everything. That's why I don't think I'll ever write one. I have no patience at all for anything. But
beta readers and I always pay editors. In fact, for a lot of for the Remember the Lightning Guitar Pop journals, and I think actually for the Geek Rock book, John Borak actually did all the copy editing and is a fantastic copy editor. I have for fiction, I have a couple friends that I trust, one in London, one in here in LA, and they will be very honest with me. I mean, sometimes ruthless and really mean with me in their notes, but like in an attempt to make my books better and to keep me honest about what I'm writing. So those beta readers are very valuable. But then I also try to always hire a copy editor, because I need somebody else's eyes to polish it.
How different is writing a book from writing songs?
I'm not a songwriter, so I have no idea.
Oh, that's true. I guess you're not.
So extremely different is the answer.
Yeah. Right.
And David yet makes another mistake, forgetting that Steve didn't write the songs.
I'll take credit, just only the ones you like, though. If you didn't,
only the good.
That was Waylon or Kevin Rydell.
No, right. Have you heard of Bill James?
No.
Well, just a little background. Bill James is a baseball writer. In the early 80s, he wrote books on statistical analysis, basically saying the traditional stats didn't tell you enough, or sometimes they misled you about the value of players. So he entered some math and also just some logical reasoning into coming up with formulas to rank players. He's been doing that. He was doing that for years, and finally, he was known as part of the sabermetric community of basically stat geeks. Mm-hmm. And around the time when Moneyball, you might know that book,
I know that one, yeah,
or the movie, when that came out, where the Oakland A's were using that kind of analysis to put a team together. A lot of owners kind of picked up on it, and Bill James was hired by the Red Sox to be an analyst for them. And it was after that they actually won their first World Series since 1918. Wow. Now, what do I want to say about that? He also is a crime book writer.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned him. You might want to check him out. But
there's a lot of us. There's a lot of crime writers.
But it's interesting how both you and he, write about other things as maybe your main passion, and also write about crime as a secondary passion. It's just interesting.
I can't help it, right? Like I can't help but make my books primarily about music, even when I'm writing fiction. There's the old saw of write what you know. And I guess it's just, I've been doing music and been a fan of music for so long that's what comes naturally when I sit down to write a story.
Have you ever considered screenplay writing? Taking your ideas for, crime that involves music and turning it into a screenplay? I've
worked with a director and screenwriter on turning my first book, Bad Citizen Corporation, into a TV series, like a Netflix series.
Right.
We pitched it and it didn't go anywhere. And then there's somebody else reading it now who said they might be interested in doing something similar. I don't really need another hobby. And I certainly don't need to get into another field that's going to be replaced by AI anytime soon. It's like all these things I pursue is like, like I'm a drummer, and it's like, dude, drum machines, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm a writer, and it's like, oh no, I can, if I publish a book and put it up on Amazon, somebody can have an AI knockoff of it up there 2 days later. It's moving now.
Jordan,
Yeah.
Jordan, to respond to your question, no, he didn't write The Catcher in the Rye, but Bill James didn't. But do you remember? Have you heard about a ball player named Mo Berg? And no, I'm not talking about the guy from The Pursuit of Happiness. Mo Berg was a mediocre catcher in the late 20s and early 30s. What people did know about him, other than he couldn't hit, was that he read about 11 different newspapers from. Well, he read newspapers from 11 different countries, 11 different languages. They knew he was really brilliant, which led to Babe Ruth's line about you can speak 11 languages, but you can't hit in any of them. Anyway, Mo Berg ended up becoming a spy in World War II. Yeah. Well, you might have heard of this, though, Jordan, because he ended up being a spy in World War II, going to Japan under the pretense of being a photographer. But meanwhile, he was taking pictures to, let the U.S. know what was up over there. He ended up writing a book called The Catcher is a Spy.
Yeah, yeah.
Jordan, you would probably like reading that book, only for the World War II stuff, I think. Anyway, little digression. Sorry.
It's all good.
I'm a big baseball guy. And, well, you're wearing a Dodgers cap right there. So
that's mostly because I love Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You're not really a baseball fan in any way?
I grew up a baseball fan. I grew up like a devout Little League kid. I was a total baseball brat when I was growing up, but I haven't really kept up with it later in life.
But it's funny you mentioned that you're wearing it because you love LA. I've seen so many people wearing sports caps, even though they're not fans of not only the team, but the sport in general. It's all for style now.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big football fan. I love the Miami Dolphins. I'll see people wearing Dolphins caps. Like, all right, Dolphins. Like, what?
Yeah, all the time that I could potentially spend watching sports, I'm writing almost exclusively.
No,
you got to pick your battles.
That's a really good idea. I think you made the right choice. I can see that'll be the day becoming a movie at any rate.
Oh,
I think it would hold some interest for a couple of hours. You could make a series around it if you embroidered things a little bit, I think, but for 2 hours, I think you have something.
Oh, I really appreciate that. If there's anybody out there listening who has really great connections in Hollywood and would like to screenwrite this thing, I am down. Give me a call. Have your people call my people.
Let me while you say that, I want to remember the lightning.substack.com so people can find you there as well. But you're going back to something that you just alluded to there was you write something, you could put it up and there'd be an AI version in 2 days. What do you think, modern, let's call it technology and the internet and AI, how has that really hurt writers and writing and like physical books? I love physical bookstores, and they're going by the wayside for the most part, except for you get the small little niche book places, and that kind of makes me sad. I know my daughter, my oldest daughter, is a writer, and she laments it all the time because she loves the physical. She loves to hold that in your, just like an album, just like we talk about albums, holding it in your hand.
Yes.
But and technology has changed so much about that. What are your feelings as far as that's concerned?
I try not to think about it too much. Obviously, in the writing community online, there's a lot of hand-wringing that goes on about it. There's some justifiable anger. I think the concerns that people in Hollywood have about what the studios will do with that technology is totally valid and really worth looking at very closely in terms of people's livelihoods. In all honesty, I write as a expensive hobby. I break even or make a little bit of money, right? So it's not like I have to feed myself with my writing at this point in my life, which is a luxury. I do think it's a sort of generational existential crisis about what it means to create art, and why you do it and what your motivation is and what you might get out of it. But I see bands surviving through it. I see writers surviving through it. I see screenwriters surviving through it. It's just going to be, it's going to be a little hairy for a little while, I think.
I mean, just like, artists talking about, or lamenting the death of CDs and maybe vinyl coming back a little bit. And then you have the internet and you've got to promote yourself. I mean, there's positive and negatives. And I see a lot of Instagram and TikTok channels and whatnot where people are reviewing physical copies of books, and they've got tons of followers, and they're saying you got to go get this and hang on to it and read it and flip through it and take it to the beach and be comfortable with this in your backpack. And I think that's really good too. And I think you can reach a lot more people than what you might not have been able to do so.
Oh no, for sure. The democratization and the distribution model. I mean, I self-publish everything at this point. I don't have to work with publishers anymore for a couple of reasons. One, it's you spend a lot of time in my experience, when I could be writing, trying to find an agent or trying to find a publisher. And that's a genuine pursuit. It's a different level of distribution and marketing that you're potentially going to get. But I'd rather spend that time writing. And so I'm making use of all of the distribution and self-publishing platforms and to my own benefit. And it works for the way that I like to write and publish.
Now, just because I'm not that familiar with the process, but is self-publishing very similar to self-publishing a CD?
I publish Remember the Lightnings, and I publish the Power Pop Ice all through Amazon. Through their that's called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay.
And they print the books on demand. So when you ordered that book, thank you very much. They print one and they send it to you.
Wow.
They don't print a big box, right? So I'm not having to warehouse and run the risk of 1,000 books or 4,000 books.
It's all on order.
It's all on order.
Yeah.
And you really can't do that with a CD or vinyl. Nobody's going to print one CD, graphics on the CD. You can do CDRs, but not a full on CD or a full on 12-inch vinyl on demand. Not yet, at least.
I've heard people talk about that with vinyl. I knew somebody who was starting a company that was on demand vinyl. They're, sort of like what Jack White has in his record store, kind of like we could make a compilation vinyl pressing. You just choose the songs and it makes the vinyl for you.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that went anywhere, but no, I mean, my relationship with technology is I'm in my 50s, right? Like I grew up with a certain idea of what things were, and you can roll with the changes as much as you want, but there comes a point where you're like, that one is too much for me, or I'm not going to accept AI generated books as art, whereas other people might.
Speaking of which, Steve, we'll start with this question. Have you heard the AI generated Power Pop song?
You mean Hoverboard?
Is that what it is?
It's the
Hoverboard.
It's supposedly a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
The three girls. Yeah.
So I'm one of a handful of music writers who got duped by that guy. I wrote a whole article about it at Remember the Lightning. Two reviewers that I really respect and trust reviewed a Hoverboard song, and I listened to it, and I really liked it because to my ears, it sounded like an all-female version of Nerfherder. That's how I was experiencing it. So I pinged them on Instagram and offered to interview the band, and they agreed. And I sent the questions off. And to this guy's credit, he didn't let me run the interview without letting me know. He answered the questions as himself. So to this guy's credit, he did that. But yeah, it was a little alarming in the moment to get a note back that says, here's the first bombshell. I'm a 40-year-old guy who's making a documentary about how AI music's going to take over. And so, but then I really thought through it, and you guys really should read the piece because it left me asking a lot more questions than having answers about, like, if I talk to my friends about it, even people who've been playing music for a long time will be like, it just democratizes music. Maybe somebody doesn't have the means or the time to buy instruments and take lessons and put in their 10,000 hours, but they have a song idea, and this will allow them to do that. And, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. And then on the other end, there's the purists that are, if it wasn't a band of humans, then it doesn't count. And here I am in the middle going, yeah, I like the songs enough to want to interview the band. So I don't know.
So what exactly goes into an AI generated song though? So you have to supply the lyrics and AI
No.
generates the music.
So
Because those lyrics were awful.
Yeah, the lyrics are awful, but the thing is, he wrote those for his high school band. So this is Hoverborg is a hybrid of where we're going. These were old songs that from what he told me, and I don't know what to believe because I've never met the guy, right? So like, there's part of me that's like,
he might be AI,
25-year-old guy, right? Like I don't really know, but
Right.
It screwed with my head enough that it left me asking some questions about it, but. He wrote these songs and wanted to do something with them. It was his high school band, or most of these songs. And he never got around to doing it, but then he figured out that he could do it with AI. And so he just started running some of his old songs through AI. So they were written primarily, or a number of them were written by a human. Some version of them were written by a human.
Mm-hmm. He
then had all of the music generated and all of the vocal performances generated using AI. Now, from what he told me, he had to really work at it. He put a lot of effort into getting the final product that he got. And even mentioned that at one point he had guys singing it, the AI generated male voice. And it sounded so off that he decided to try the female voice, and that sounded more real. And that's why Hoverborg became an all-female band. Now, on top of it all, he hired 3 actors to be in the music video, and he hired those 3 actors to be on the record cover. So it is a combination of AI generated music with this layer of a human songwriter and his going the extra mile with the hoax of hiring actors and shooting a video to make it all a lot more believable. But it's an interesting situation, and I'm sure I'll get skewered in this documentary as I fooled this old guy. But
can I send my AI generated self to one of their concerts?
Yeah, I don't know. He said he might play shows. He might put a band together and play shows. Like again, to his credit, after he posted it on Bandcamp with the pre-order. I wasn't involved in any of this. I found out after he had gone public, but I didn't see it. He put it up for pre-order and put the video up on YouTube and let people find it on Bandcamp. Then when they were ready to ship the pre-order CDs, he let everybody who ordered one know, hey, this is AI generated. Do you want your money back? According to him, only one person asked for their money back.
No. I mean, look, if it's a good song, it's a good song. But
what immediately gets you into, that's all subjective.
Right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's another discussion.
I got to admit, when I first heard it right off the bat, I mean, I was kind of digging. I'm more of a lyrics guy than what David is. We have this discussion all the time, but then when I started listening to the lyrics, I was just like, oh, that's really
my biggest problem
weird.
There was too much auto-tune, which of course that's my big problem with a lot of things these days. But I wonder if the problem with a male vocal was that it had one extra vocal cord. Sorry, that's relating to the 6-fingered hands that AI always seems to have.
I don't know, Jordan. It feels like David's stepping on your territory there.
Yeah, and not doing as well. So, since you're writing more or less full time now, what's the future of the Brothers Steve?
Oh, that's a great question. I was just with Oz, who is the producer and one of the main songwriters and vocalists, the other day. And whenever we're together, he's a very old friend of mine. Whenever we're together, the subject comes up, but there's just been no momentum. And it's really one of those projects that needs natural momentum to happen because we're, again, doing it mostly for fun. And people are just busy and spread out and have kids and jobs and other pursuits. And so will I say it'll never happen again? No. Are there any plans right now? No.
It's a shame. I mean, Jeff Whalen is one of the best front men. I'll say one thing. When you guys played IPO at Molly Malone's that one year, my brother, who was there, he's more of a mainstream pop guy. Well, he likes some obscure stuff too, but he doesn't see IPO level bands too often. He was most impressed with you guys because you had a value added. You guys put on a show, and I think to most people who are in that arena, putting on a show is really paramount. It's even more important than the music sometimes. But
I
I hope you continue to do it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've always really appreciated the support you've shown for the Brother Steven. Getting to play our record release party at IPO was really fun. Putting on a show as a live band has always been super important in all the bands that I've been in. Like, there's the recorded material, but when you're up on a stage and people are drinking and you're in a bar and they've paid money to come in, you have to entertain them. That's how I've always felt about it. Now, unfortunately, I've also got an absurdist sense of humor, and sometimes that stuff goes a little far. We'll go over into Spinal Tap territory. But we're not afraid to have fun on stage. And I think a lot of the times when I dislike a band or I feel disappointed by a live band, it's like, man, you guys weren't having any fun that I saw, and you weren't making me have any fun.
Right?
No, that's true. I mean,
important to me.
Yeah, so many bands just get up and play their stuff, and even if it's really good, it's true. There's no value added there.
Yeah, no. Now there's a new movement out of Japan called kamikaze rock, and it's almost rockabilly-esque, you know. But there's a band that's been all over YouTube and TikTok and whatnot, and they dress all in black leathers. They've got pompadours, the four Japanese guys, and they're singing original stuff in a rockabilly bent, but the show they put on, even in a small little club, it's very coordinated. When the singer's singing, he backs up from the mic, and the bass and the guitar guys both come up to the front of the stage and do their thing. Then they back away, and they know what they're doing. And I posted somewhere, and Lisa Michaels has been watching this here, and she loved the post too. I said, they put the show in show business. They're not only a killer band, but man, they're fun to watch. You know?
I mean,
and that's important.
I've always been drawn to that. I've always been drawn to the kind of band that, for my personal tastes, and not everybody shares this, I like a sloppy rock band. I like it to feel a little bit like the wheels are about to come off. I like them to be extra human up there, right? I want strings to break. I want picks to fly. I want drumsticks to get dropped on the ground. I like rock and roll, right? I like rock and roll.
And you've got the best front man for that. When Jeff goes sometimes off on his thing as supporting musicians, what do you do? Do you just kind of lay back and let him do his thing?
Oh, you mean when he's like doing a rant or something?
Yeah, or whatever.
Oh, we're laughing along or smiling along with everybody else, or we're looking at each other. Like it's awesome. That's what we want, right? Like when we're on stage, for better or worse, and whether we always pull it off or we don't, we're really trying to entertain.
You succeed in spades.
Oh,
and for those of you who don't know, if you want to picture Jeff Whalen, he looks like a punk Leonardo DiCaprio. At least to me.
I've never heard that before, but I'm sure he would love that.
I think I told him that maybe when he was on. That was a few years ago. But yeah, that's how I see him anyway.
Yeah, that's another thing about the Brother Steve. Everybody in that band is a writer or editor in some fashion. And Jeff is a fantastic writer. I mean, always has been a fantastic writer. His essay about the Beatles in Go All the Way is one of my favorite.
It was great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was very surprised because, he comes off as being such a silly guy. You wouldn't figure that he'd be a serious writer, but yeah.
I mean, when I talk about the Power Pop Heist books being about two brothers arguing about music in the van, I mean, that's Tsar in the recording studio, in the rehearsal space, in the tour van, backstage at a show, at a club on a random Tuesday night. We were always in some deep conversation about what's the real meaning of Waterloo Sunset, and it was always, that's the kind of conversations we always have. That's an incredibly deep thinker, but he's not afraid to be playful with it.
Yeah, right. That's something I always try to get across to people. People are complicated. They have more than one facet.
Yes.
I don't mean to go off on this really strong tangent here, but just like people have been divided in the minds of many based upon their political affiliation. And there are a lot of people, and mostly, I have mostly liberal friends because my friends are all musicians. But there are a lot of liberal friends who'll say, I'm not going to be friends with somebody who supports Donald Trump, or I'm not going to be friends with somebody who's a Republican. And I say, you know what? That's not what they're all about. I said one time when I was in the hospital, the first guy to call me when I got out, is a staunch Republican, but he was concerned about my well-being. I've seen Republicans give a lot to charity. I mean, there's a lot more to people than just their political affiliation. Yet, I think that's a byproduct of the fact that we're all so bombarded with information these days that the only way we can handle all of it is to simplify it all. And that's what people are doing now in their evaluation of other people. They're picking one category and they're basing their opinion of them on that category. And, politics, of course, being a very polarizing thing, that's a very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But, when we think about when we were growing up, and you're about 10 years younger than I am, but we didn't have nearly as much stuff coming at us. Today's kids, and today's adults, like I said, we're just bombarded with everything, with not just the internet, but so many other media and just in various aspects of life. And how do we make sense of it all? By simplifying it all. And that causes a lot of misjudgments, I think.
Yeah, but there's also the shouting match of social media, right? Like people feel emboldened to act like assholes in a way on social media that they would never do if you were face to face with somebody, or like you wouldn't do. I mean, that my whole theory about social media is I like to treat it like a backyard keg party in high school. I don't know, like growing up in Southern California, like on the weekend, we'd wait for someone's parents to go out of town, and then 200 of us would descend on their house with kegs, and it would be a bunch of teenagers in the back, maybe with a band playing in the corner. But when you're at a party, you're just kind of trying to keep the peace, right? You're not walking up to the toughest guy in the yard and going, "Hey man, I hate your band," right? You're like, "Hey dude, want a beer?" Right? Because you're just trying to get through the party and have a good time. And I think if we took more of that approach to social media, rather than puffing up our chest, or like somebody says a couple words that you disagree with, and you just like type 4,000 word responses, and it's like, dude, like, I mean, it's part of the reason that like these power pop fan groups that we belong to are funny on one hand, and I have to leave them sometimes on the other. Is it like, at the end of the day, guys, this is power pop. It's rock and roll. You're supposed to be having fun.
Well, no matter what group you're in, I don't think it calls for people being rude. And it really bugs me. I mean, besides power pop groups, I'm in a few baseball groups, and somebody might offer their opinion about something. And the responses, so many of them will be rude, things like you're an idiot, or, maybe things a little more creative than that, but essentially telling the person they know nothing. They shouldn't be in this group. And, there's gaslighting, and there's, all the new words they apply there so much in some of these groups. And what's the point? Why be so rude? Just be nice. If you don't agree with somebody, there's a nice way of saying it. You don't have to call them an idiot.
I'm not a religious person, but I will paraphrase Jesus Christ from the New Testament here and say, hey guys, don't be a jerk. That's simple.
That's what it boils down to. Yeah, just don't be a jerk.
There are times, unfortunately, where we're forced to behave in that way, but there are other times where we're certainly not. We could choose to be friendly, and social media has opened the door for people to, I guess, people to spew out their unconscious anger or resentment, and be rude when they don't have to be, and it's really unpleasant.
Yeah.
And when it gets back to the arts, I highly suggest that, every once in a while during the day, put your phone down, turn off the computer, pick up something physical, like that'll be the day, pick up a record album, pick up a CD, and just take yourself away from it all with something that, is meaningful. And people have put hard work into it to make you have a little bit of entertainment away from all this electronic stuff.
That's why I hike. I hike very often. Wow. I live in the foothills, and I'm out on the trails a lot, and that's when I can escape it all.
That's what me. I take naps, but that's just me. I'm old.
Yeah. So, if I nap on the trail, there's a good chance a bobcat or a scorpion's going to get me.
Yeah, well, that's true. Did you ever see that video on YouTube with the guy who confronts the mountain lion?
I've seen that. Yeah, I've also encountered bears up here on the trails. You know,
But were you ever in danger when you of a bear attacking you?
I don't know if you're within distance that you can actually see a bear and hear it grunting. I don't know. I don't know how safe you feel.
But in this video, the bobcat was probably only about 30 feet from him.
Oh, John!
He just kept backing away. He did everything he was supposed to do. He backed away slowly. He talked to it. It didn't really do any good. And occasionally the mountain lion would jump at him, but not getting that close, but scaring the shit out of him. Yeah. Finally, he didn't know what else to do. He took a rock and threw it at it, and then it ran away.
There's lots of prescribed ways to handle those situations. I mean, with a bear, you mostly just make noise. And in my experience, I've run into bears enough that they don't want anything to do with you, generally speaking, unless you got a marshmallow in your mouth or whatever. But
and I just read something the other day about
marshmallow in my mouth because of that.
I read something the other day about bears in general. You know, it works. Like lay down and cover up works for a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
For a black bear, try to make yourself big. Yeah. For a polar bear, you're screwed.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. No matter what you do with a polar bear, they're going to kill you. So you might as well just say your prayers and be done with it. But
I'm thankful that I haven't run into a lot of polar bears on California trails because we're getting there with climate change. I mean, they're coming south. But, honestly, yesterday I was on a hiking trail locally here, not like some deep hike or anything. I was like maybe a mile outside of a housing development, and I ran into a coyote puppy on the trail, which at first same thing. I thought, and then I was like, that means there's probably an angry mom or coyotes nearby, and I didn't run into any more. But that's the first time I've seen a coyote puppy. That was
wow. I do AI hiking.
Yeah.
It's safer.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I may have to learn how to take an AI nap at some point. So, Steve, are you working on anything that we don't know about at this point?
I mean, the third Power Pop heist book is the most pressing thing. I have a couple of ideas and my feelers out for a couple other projects that would be more like 2025. But I'm so consistently writing it, Remember the Lightning, and I'll be doing the 4th volume of the Remember the Lightning, a guitar pop journal in October. So I've always got something going on.
So we're scrolling.
I have an idea for a book. About this fictitious music festival called National Rock Underthrow.
Yes, yeah, keep going. I think you got it.
NRO.
I think we can riff off of that, and I can use my festival as a model for it, and then ultimately you just write about IPO.
I partially named a character after you in the second book in the series. There's a Swedish producer named Bash Valentine that was named after you and Don Valentine.
Which is funny because in Dave's younger day, when he did porn, that was his porn name, Bash Valentine. Yeah, it was very good.
Close your eyes and picture David doing porn.
I went by another name I used was Warren G. Hardon, of course.
What did I watch? Is this like the Putnam Society? What's happening?
Yes, it is. Steve, so we're rolling rememberthelightning.substack.com across the bottom, and you keep referencing that. Can you expound on what Remember the Lightning is?
Yeah, it's a Substack newsletter where I write primarily about music, although I also write about music books. So the tag is music books. Those are the 3 things I write about. It's generally me interviewing bands I'm interested in, usually up and coming newer bands. I've got a single premiere tomorrow for a really great new Brooklyn-based power pop band called Wifey.
I've heard about Wifey. In fact, I am going to invite them to IPO New York. So
you should. They're really great. I've heard the EP, and we'll have a single premiere tomorrow for their second single, which is called Tomaggio.
Yeah,
but it's all about baseball. You're gonna love it.
Oh, nice. I really look forward to hearing. And I'll send you a message asking for their contact info.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd be happy to pass it along.
I've heard them, and I like them a lot.
I interview bands. I write essays. I'll write about, how much I love the song September Girls by Big Star.
I know. Records. I do that.
Big Star.
And then I also have occasional guest posts. Like Jordan Oakes actually writes for me quite often and has written some really great reviews of recent releases.
I'm sure he has.
Yeah, really great writer. Obviously knows a ton about music.
So if you're a power pop fan, if you're a music book fan, if you're a music fan in general, remember the lightning.substack.com, a great place for a lot of stuff that you write about. So people can check that out. Good.
And we'll certainly look forward to everything that comes, in the near and distant future from you.
Yeah. Every day above ground is a gift, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, it's
Steve,
absolutely
thank
true.
you so much for appearing. This was fun. It really
it was a blast. Thank you guys so much. The time flew by.
Always does.
It does. Yeah. And everyone out there, definitely check out his website, pick up some of his books, or all of them for that matter.
Yep. As you said, you publish through Amazon. So at Amazon.com, you can look up SW Lauden. Things pop up. Get the physical. I know I downloaded the Geek the Blue book. I just downloaded that last week.
And if you buy Generation Blue, you get
Blue,
the record that goes along with it, featuring tracks by many of the bands who were interviewed in here.
Look at that.
Just go to.
Thank you, Tim.
You can go to the Big Stir website and pick up the record and book together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I
actually went to
love
their
Lisa's
house
music so much. That's cool that Lisa Michaels is here. Wow, how cool.
Yeah, very nice. She's the best.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Anyway, thank you so much again, Steve.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's really nice talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.
Steve, take care. We look forward to everything coming down the road. Yes, indeed. Always look forward to it.
Have a great rest of the day, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
I'm off on a hike. Yeah. Are you going to the Paul Collins Unique Boys show?
When is that?
August 8th.
IPO is happening then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this always happens. He always does shows when IPO are happening. Not on purpose. It just works out that way. So, damn.
Yeah. And we'll see. We'll talk about it, but we'll see Carl in August. So thanks, Carl, for stopping by. Fantastic.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, guys.
Steve, have a great one.
Care, Steve.
Wish you the best. See you later, Steve.
Yeah.
All right.
Another fun one. Yeah.
That was great. That was a lot of fun, man. I'm fascinated with going from music to a writing career and just the process and how he does it. Really well done. Yeah, really well done. I loved it. But that'll be the day. I love that one. Generation Blue. Fantastic. Look forward to anything else he's got coming down the line.
And now maybe it's because I was exercising, but I'm blanking on who we have as a guest on the 26th.
On the 26th
of July. Have you written it down?
Nobody on the 26th, because the 26th is a Friday.
I thought we had someone after Tom Hartman. Not the 26th. Then what's
the 17th? We've got Mark. The 17th we've got Mark Vecino coming.
Oh, that's right, Mark, and then Tom Hartman's on the 24th, and that's all.
Then Tom Hartman of the Eravans on the 24th. Yeah, and then the 31st. No, the 31st we've got Stephen Gaines.
Oh, that's right. And
Heroes and Villains.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk about this. So we've got Mark Vecino coming up next week.
Yep. With his new album.
I usually have this one handy, and I don't right now, of course. Do you have a picture of it? Oh, here we go. I got it.
You got it? Okay. Yep. Top of the world.
This is his brand new album. It's interesting that, or maybe just fun coincidence that I was emceeing a Nilsson show yesterday, because this album is very Nilsson-esque.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can see that.
Much more so than his previous album of like 25 years ago, Pop Job, which was much more bubblegummy power pop. This one is a little more subdued, more Nilsson-esque, but beautiful. He's got a fine voice. The melodies and harmonies are top notch. It's a really good record.
And we'll play some of it next week. Yeah, we'll play some of it. Yeah.
And then, on the 24th, again, we've got Tom Hartman, the main man of the band, the Eravans, who in the late 60s, for whatever reason, they were invited to come out to Abbey Road and record.
Incredible.
They were able to release a record on Parlophone called World of You, which was a minor hit in the UK. Recorded a bunch of other stuff that didn't come out until... Well, it came out unofficially in the 90s, and then finally Revola in 2003 released this album, Resurrection, on CD. Hadn't been done on vinyl until Euclid Records of St. Louis. And Jordan Oakes, I got to thank for hooking me up with them. and with Tom Hartman. They put this out a few months ago, and it's really, really nice. The songs, as you might expect, are very late '60s, Beatlesque, a little Baroque. Like World of You has a strong left bank feel to it. Tom Hartman, the main man, still bubbling with enthusiasm about all this. Living in Florida now, but still has been really happy with the response to the record. He was happy it came out. So we'll have him on the 24th, and then on the 31st, we'll have author extraordinaire, but mainly because of his work on this book, Heroes and Villains, the true story of the Beach Boys. Is it true? Well, one of our guests from a few last year, I guess, David Leaf, said it is. There are a lot of things that seem very implausible, but that's probably in response to what our image of the Beach Boys. Our image of the Beach Boys, of course, is sun, surf, cars, just pure California fun life. Not drug takers, not carousers, not any of that stuff. Not straight jacket wearers. The story about Mike Love and the straight jacket is certainly one of my favorites in here.
Yeah, the true story is much different than what you would think.
Well, again, the veracity of the book has been called into some question, but who knows? Well, Stephen knows.
Yeah, Stephen knows.
Have him on, and we'll have him talk about it as other books. But this one is the main thrust of the argument, the appearance, I should say.
And that'll be great.
And so we don't have a date yet for Carl Caffarelli?
Yeah, August 21st.
Oh,
so
okay.
after the last Wednesday in July, the 31st, we have August 7th and 14th open right now. That could easily change as
Get Michael Palin, come on.
Yeah, we're trying. And then Carl coming on the 21st with his new book, and that's going to be fantastic. He sent the PDFs off to us, and I read through that in 2 days, real quick.
Good.
That's a fun. It's a fun read.
I'll certainly check it out before we interview.
Yeah. You're going to love it. So he's on the 21st, but as I said, nobody on the 7th and 14th of August as yet, but you know us, that could change in a heartbeat. So, if you haven't gone over to materialissues.com over on YouTube and subscribe, that's the best way to find out what we're doing. And we don't spam. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. And tell your friends about it. We have a blast here. We've got 162 after this episode. Shows archived. You can watch them all. Some fantastic guests over the last 3+ years. So we thank everybody for hanging out with us, all of our friends. There's Carl. Yeah, man. No, great stuff.
Yeah, well, Carl,
looking forward to talking about it.
It's well deserved, Carl. It really is.
Yeah, good stuff. So that's what we got going on. Another great night. It's fun hanging out with you as always, David. Glad you're back on the treadmill Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And
treadmill, arm bike, and foot bike.
Getting that ticker in tip-top shape so we can do another 10 years of material issues.
Until I eat a whole loaf of bread later tonight. But
and a bag of ketchup chips. All right.
I don't have any ketchup chips out here right now. I do have, though, lime chili chips, which are really good.
I haven't tasted them yet. I forgot about bringing the bag in, and I don't eat that much, but the new Doritos, dill pickle Doritos.
Oh, yeah. They're good.
Are they good?
Yeah.
Haven't tasted it yet.
I love everything dill pickle, so to speak. We'll be going to Vancouver at the end of August, and I'll be getting ketchup chips galore, and also
all dressed.
They got their jerk chicken chips also.
Do you eat the
President's Choice? I love those also.
Do you eat the Canadian all dressed? What they call all dressed?
No, I don't like that.
No, I thought you would with the ketchupy kind of.
Well,
flavor,
there's certain things in there that I don't like. There's some things I do and some I don't, and what I don't supersedes what I do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Very cool. Hey, another great episode. We'll see everybody back here next Wednesday for Mark Bassino, and Same time, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Way late overseas, but we know we have some overseas people that join us. We really appreciate it. But
thank you,
like
Andy.
Andy Hartley, you're here tonight. Thank you, Rin. Thank you so much
Rin's
for hanging
joining us
out
today. Great to see you, Rin.
Have a great night, Lisa. Always great to see you. Always great to talk with you.
I miss you. I do.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll talk to everybody next Wednesday. Have a great one. Love to Rena.
Love to Chaz.
See you, everybody.